Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Bass Kayak and Beers podcast. Once again on the Paddle and Fit Network. That was kind of like a lame can opener there. I think it's. I'm afraid my beer is kind of frozen. I think I left it in the freezer too much, but I apologize. Usually, I like to get a crisp pop on that can, but guess not today. Got a Jungling. Started here in Texas. Whoops, over here. They started bringing Jungling in Texas finally. I really love that beer, so happy to have Jungling in Texas. Awesome. Speaking of, great episode here, and we're going to be talking about the Texas Lonestar Throwdown, and I got the winner of the Lonestar Throwdown, Mr. J.R. Mocaby. I'm a huge fan of J.R. I started the first time I met J.R. Mocaby was in the KBBT national, not national, the Texas, the one dedicated to only Texas, the KBBT Texas Regional. I guess that's what's the name. And it was my first knockout stage or one-on-one tournament. And I was looking at the board, and the board had a lot of big names, and kind of my name and JR's name kind of like came towards the end after most of the big names, or at least the popular names, came out. And I thought, okay, cool. I avoided going against some of the big names in Texas. I got this guy, Jared Mocaby. I don't know anything about him. So I went into Texas tourney, and boy, was I disappointed because that guy is a model of consistency. And he proved that they at the tournament, I think he got 89 inches. I got something like 45 inches. I think I got 3 that day. It was one of my first tournaments. It was bad. It started off good, but it got progressively worse throughout the day. But ever since then, I love following tournaments, especially here in Texas. And I've been watching his name in some of the tournaments that I've been a part of, like the TKC and other tournaments that I like to keep an eye on because I'm a huge fan of the tournament fishing scene. And this guy, like I said, always either in high 80s, mid 90s. Super impressed with what he's done. He finally gets that big win, always the bridesmaid, never the bride kind of thing. But he finally got it. I was super excited when I saw his name announced as the winner. So, of course, I had to bring it on my show. Like I said, I'm a huge fan of what he does. And I really want to get the juice on how he manages to be so consistent every day, tournament after tournament. So we'll be back to a quick commercial. Before that, check out my sponsor, Douglas Rod. Go to douglasoutdoors.com. Check out their full lineup, LRS, X Matrix rods. Again, amazing rods. All my rods are Douglas rods, and I love him, and I would recommend him even if I wasn't sponsored by them. Other than that, go follow me on Instagram if you have Instagram or Facebook on the Bass, Kayak, and Beers. Doesn't cost you anything. And every now and then I post a picture of a fish that I caught. Mostly dinks, but every now and then a nice one. But anyways, quick commercial. Be right back with J.R. Mocaby. Mr. J.R. Mocaby, how you doing, buddy?
Pretty good. How you doing, man?
Congratulations. Very good. Thank you. Congratulations on the Lone Star, man. Throwdown. How'd that feel?
Man, it still hasn't quite hit me yet. It's a good feeling. It's hard to describe, but it hasn't quite hit me yet.
How many times have you fished that tournament? This is your first time on the Lone Star?
No, this is my second year fishing the Throwdown. I fished last year and then this year. Last year I actually got fifth, the top 5, but I just out of it. And then this is my second year fishing it.
No surprise you got in the top 5, man. It seems like you're always in the top 5.
I try
Except
to be,
on
man.
Lake Canyon. Lake Canyon, we're going to talk about that lake, man, because that was, spring over here got crazy with the tournaments, man. It was, people were putting godly numbers out there. There were some tournaments. I know Cats had a tournament. There was people going up like 105, 104. I know TKC had a tournament like that as well. They were like in the triple digits. We know what happened with the Bass Nation Kayak Series Championship. The KBF at the Trinity Trail Saturday, Jody Quinn 109. I've said so many times on my podcast. Guillermo Gonzalez 110. Oh, by the way, Guillermo Gonzalez is killing out the first day of the KBF National Championship 103. Great angler. So, JR, before we start talking about the throwdown, tell us a little bit about you. I know nationally you're not a big name, but locally, I think every kayak angler knows when JR Mocaby is on on a tournament, he's bound to be at the top 10 of the leaderboard. So tell us, for my national audience, how do you got into kayak fishing? What draw you into it? And, what's been your secret so far?
Man, well, I've been fishing my whole life. I started, panfish, bluegill, crappie. My dad's always had a bass boat, and that's kind of what we did growing up. And then, I guess as I got more patience, I started transitioning to bass fishing. And he's bass fished his whole life. And then we started doing some tournaments as I got older. And about 2017, I moved down to Texas from Illinois. I'm originally from Illinois, southern Illinois, about 5 hours south of Chicago. And I moved down here, and I don't have the means of getting a boat, and I don't really want a boat. So kayak fishing was the next best thing. And man, ever since then, I've loved it. I've been addicted to it. That's kind of how I got into kayak fishing, really.
How long ago did you start kayak fishing?
Let's see, probably about 2014. 2014, I had a little cheap kayak over in Illinois, and then once I moved into here, I work at Austin Canoe and Kayak there in San Antonio, and I found my way in a Hobie Pro Angler 14 eventually, and that's kind of where I have stopped at. So, but yeah, 2014 is kind of when I got into kayak fishing.
So you're a seasoned veteran, at least, of the sport of bass fishing and kayak.
You could say so.
Nice. How old are you, JR? You have such a baby face, even with the beard.
27. I turned 28 in December.
27.
Mm-hmm.
Man,
still a young.
Yeah, and congratulations. You were talking on the pre-show, expecting your first boy. You have a 4-year-old daughter. Now you're getting your first boy here in December. Congratulations, man.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited. We're very excited.
Nice. You already have a name? Can we or is it a secret yet?
No, it's not a secret. We're going to name him JB. I'm actually the fourth. I'm John Robert the fourth. That's my name, JR, and then he's going to be the fifth. But we can't name him JR or John because that's my dad's name, so we're naming him JB. So
nice.
Yep.
Awesome, man. Again, congratulations.
Thank you.
So, JR, what's been kind of like your secret to keeping so consistent on every single tournament? Like, I mean, every time you're in a tournament, you're always right there to think of it.
Man, moving down here and seeing the quality of anglers you've got to be on your toes and you've got to be on your game. There's no room for fishing dirty, missing fish here and there. So what I did to kind of combat that is just time on the water, fishing a lot, picking up on little nuances here and there. Just kind of fishing the way I like to fish, really. I mean, what it really boils down to is time on the water, because you pick up on little key things here and there that really make a difference, especially on tournament day when you've got multiple anglers out there. The lake's already been pressured from pre-fish / tournament. So just time on the water, that's just what it boils down to. And a lot of video, a lot of research. I mean, that's what I do basically all the time when I'm not fishing is, research on the next lake or the next tournament coming up, or, YouTubing it, watching tons of videos, looking up past tournament results, just kind of getting an idea of, what's going on, certain times. But yeah, man, just time on the water, putting a lot of time in.
Now, I noticed on the tournaments, I noticed it when you were fishing the KBBT, we're going one-on-one, and I noticed it also on the TKC. Like, I'm one that I always looking at the leaderboard, every now and then, not all the time, but I'll glance at it, see how everything's going. And I've noticed that you, for the most part, you get your limits early, and then you kind of always seems like you're in that, the mid 70s, and as the day progresses, you start calling and you start moving into the 80s and 90s. Is that something that systematically you do? Do you start off with a certain bait that that's going to get you a limit, and then you is that always the game plan for you?
Not really. No, it kind of just works out that way. I don't really downsize or throw smaller baits to get a limit and then upgrade. I just throw my confidence baits, from start to finish, and it just kind of works out where I get, a quick limit here and there with some smaller fish, and then just kind of slowly progress as the day goes on. But, my top water, Topwater is my main deal, and anywhere from a frog to a Whopper Plopper or a buzzbait. But, that's kind of how, I start most of my tournaments, depending on the seasonal, time of year. But, yeah, that's kind of what I do. I don't really downsize, and I don't try to go for a limit. I just try to go for the biggest 5. I don't need 10 fish. I just need 5 big ones. So that's kind of what I target, man. It just kind of works out that way where I catch, 5 little ones, and then I just slowly progress through the day.
Nice. So what's been you mentioned like top water, other than top water, any other like baits that you like to throw?
Chatterbait. Yeah, I'm a big
Yeah.
chatterbait guy. I love the chatterbait. Or if there's any kind of vegetation and that kind of bite slows down, then punching. I love punching grass, heavy vegetation. We got a lot of that down here at our lakes, South Texas. But, yeah, that would be my other 2 go-tos is chatterbait and then punching.
Yeah, you guys really have some nice lakes for punching. I've noticed that. Like here in North Texas, I don't get to do it all that often because there's not really a lot of lakes. There are a handful of lakes that you can do it, but for the most part, like nothing compared to what you have like South and East and Southeast Texas specifically. I mean,
Right.
everything over there is punching, man. Pretty cool.
It is. It's a big deal down here.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the Lonestar Throwdown, man. You had a great tournament. Kind of like the same deal. You got your limit, and then you slowly started progressing and calling and moving up. How did it shape up for you? What lake did you pick? We know we had Stillhouse and we had Belton. What was your game plan? What lake did you pick? And when, if you at any point had to change your tactics going forward?
So, Lonestar Throwdown this year, you mentioned we could fish Belton or Stillhouse. I've been on Belton twice for cats in the previous years. I'm not a big fan of the lake. I don't really like fishing those highland reservoirs, clear body, clear water, deep water. So Stillhouse it's kind of the same, a lot of deep water, and it's super clear, but there's grass. So that was a difference. And for me, I love fishing grass. So it was a no-brainer which lake I was going to fish. Regardless of size of fish, but it seems like Stillhouse had the better average fish, if you will. So I kind of, that's kind of what made me choose Stillhouse. Now, I'd never been on the lake prior to Thursday, so I got down there Thursday around midday. Actually, I didn't get on the water till about 12:30, so I missed what I thought was going to be the best part of the day, the best bite of the day, that morning bite. And honestly, when I got in the water and looked at the temperature, I was kind of surprised. It was at 80.5 or 80.6. I really thought with these cooler nights we've been having that we would actually see, maybe mid 70s, somewhere around that. So I was a little thrown off by that. But, because I felt like they were kind of maybe in that last part of that summer, summer deal before the fall transition. So, I just started picking up a topwater really right when I got there because of all the grass and vegetation and kind of targeting the holes. And I started getting bit immediately at like 12:30. So I was like, wow, if this bite is, this hot right now, what is it like in the morning, right when the sun's coming up? So I kind of got stuck on that deal for a while. And, I launched up the river. There's a part called Cedar Gap, and I launched up there and just kind of hit those holes in the grass, right on the main river channel. And I was getting bit consistently. I just wasn't getting the bigger bite. So I was a little worried about a kicker fish. And I got off the water, and then Friday I launched there again, but I went the opposite way to see which area or which side was better, essentially. And then I was just going to choose that on tournament day. I wasn't going to try to go somewhere else. I wasn't going to go to a different ramp. I wasn't going to go to a different lake. I just wanted to kind of expand on that area and try to pick up on any little key, things that I could. And Friday was a bust. I don't think I did catch one fish. It was a 20-incher, but nice. It was kind of a random deal. It was on a chatterbait and some deep grass. And it was real weird because I threw out the chatterbait and I let it sink all the way to the bottom. I was in 12 foot and the grass came out to like 12 to 15 foot. It was deep grass. And right before I started to reel it over, my line was running. And I was like, that's kind of weird, So I picked up on it, and sure enough, there was tension, and it was a 20 and a half inch, fish. I was like, wow, that's kind of weird. And I didn't even have to reel it, and that was in the middle of the day. But that was just kind of a weird random deal. And I didn't have any other bites doing that. So Saturday came around and I knew what I was going to do. I was just going to go the way I went Thursday and just try to pick up every little fish I could and try to find that bigger bite as the day went on. And we got out there Saturday. We launched at 6:30, and first cast was at 7. And I was sitting on a point, and I think the second cast in, I had a 17 and a half on a frog. I started with a frog, a black frog, popping. And honestly, that's all I throw is a popping frog. I never really mess with the walking frog, especially around grass and that matted stuff, because I just feel like they can't really like see it that well. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't really displace as much water as a popping frog. And a popping frog can be kind of a nuisance around grass too, because it gets caught up a little bit with that cupped mouth. But I just kind of work it real erratic and just kind of rip it out, and it seems to just create this reaction bite. And like I said, like the second or third cast in, I caught that 17 and a half, and that was a little after 7 o'clock. And I think by 8 or 8:15, I already had a limit,
Wow.
So yeah, they were small fish. I had like 3 11-inchers because we could actually go to 10 inches. So I knew that wasn't going to do anything. But I had those 3 11-inchers in my limit. And after I had there's this major creek arm off to the right past the bridge, and that's kind of where I did all my damage in there. And once I got done there, I had hit all new water. Everything else after that was new water, and I had to figure out as I went. And because I was really banking on finding some bigger fish in that creek, and I just didn't. So it's like, man, I got to go do some upgrading. So I went searching, and the wind started picking up about this time. It's about 10 or 11, and there was these isolated patches of hydrilla, and there's a lot of grass up there, and I it's really hard to figure it out, like all the grass in a limited amount of time that I had. So I was just hitting isolated patches, trying to up my percentages, and I was throwing a chatterbait on windblown isolated patches of hydrilla, and I think I got a 16 and a 15 or doing something like that. And then I was like, okay, cool. So I'm going to kind of target that. But then after those 2 bites, I never got another bite doing that. So I picked the frog back up and started to work down the bank. And then I started transitioning from hydrilla flats to bluff walls. And the bluff walls would be pretty deep, but there was like a little flat right off the bluff wall before it dropped in the channel. The channel went right up to the bluff wall. So there was like a 5 or 6 foot right on top of that flat before it went to the creek channel, and I was just throwing a top water along those bluff walls, a Whopper Plopper. And that got me a lot of bites. That got me a lot of bites and a lot of upgrades, but they were like little 1/4-inch upgrades, 1/2-inch upgrades. So I didn't really – I think I had mid-70s or something like that. Me and the top like 5 guys were so close, and we just kept leapfrogging each other with little 1/4-inch upgrades here and there. And then about 12:30, I picked that frog back up, and there was this shade pocket. It had an overhanging tree over it, and there was a little isolated patch hydrilla in there. Right when I threw it in there, that 22.5-inch 6-pounder just destroyed it. I didn't even move the frog, and I'd been getting blowups all day. But once that fish blew up on it and how much water it moved, I knew it was a big fish. I just didn't know how big. And I cracked her and luckily got her into the net. And I knew that was like a 9 to 10-inch upgrade. So that was going to be a huge cull, put me apart from the other guys. And they were going to have to do some serious damage to catch me. And I wasn't confident because that put me at like 84. And I felt like I needed another big kicker. I felt like I needed over 90 inches, all day long with that many guys and that many quality anglers. And based on pre-fish, like when you talk to a lot of guys and a lot of buddies, that they had, awesome days out there. And I was like, man, 85, 84 inches ain't going to do nothing, But I think I got one more upgrade after that. It was a small upgrade to put me at 85 even. And I kept checking that leaderboard over and over and refreshing it because I was just like, there's no way. There's no way someone, and I felt like someone was probably sandbagging or holding fish. So I was really trying to get that last kicker, but it just never happened, But I did catch fish consistently all day. It seemed like they were just a lot of them were small. You had to weed through those, 12 to 14-inch fish to finally get a good, decent-sized fish. But that's kind of how my day went, man. It was a blast. It really was. And then when you get back to the weigh-in and you hear everyone struggled or skunked or caught 1 or 2 fish, you're like, man, you're starting to put the puzzle together. Like, is 85 really enough, I didn't feel like it was, but, man, I talked to a lot of people, and they just didn't have any, or they caught 1 or 2 fish all day or maybe 3. And just so it started to hit me there at the weigh-in. But, man, that's kind of how my day went. It was a blast. It really was.
Yeah, man. Again, congratulations. Who would have think, 85 inches on Stillhouse would have won it, man. I was watching it all day and all day, and I saw Catherine Fields get a quick limit, and she was, I think, was third. I don't remember the names of the other guys, and I do apologize to them. There was so many. There was, like you said, there was a lot of leapfrogs, and then towards not towards the end, but like 2 hours before the lines out, that's when I saw your name come up. I'm like, oh, here it is. It finally got kind of like came consistent with your pattern. You got your limit early, and then you started calling and 85 inches. And the same thing, I was thinking, man, I don't know if that's gonna hold up, but everybody seems like they were struggling. Like everybody was like, I don't know how many people actually got 5 fish, but it seems like there was, I don't know. I mean, what do you think is the reason that it wasn't like with some, that more anglers didn't catch, or that we weren't in the mid 90s?
I do have a theory. I don't know if it's right or not, but I think really why a lot of people struggled is just the sheer amount of pressure for one. And when we got to the ramp there, honestly, during tournament morning, there wasn't as many people as we thought. So that, there's only like 3 or 4 ramps on Stillhouse. So that puts a lot of people in certain areas. And, the sheer amount of pressure. And then as you get down the lake, as you go south on Stillhouse, there's less and less grass. So I think that those areas that did have the grass got hit a lot. And, they were it was hard to figure out the fish down there. And for me, it was easy up there because there was just so much grass, and that's just what I like fishing, and it just kind of worked out. And a lot of people, what I've realized talking to people here and there, they put the topwater down as soon as that sun comes out. And I rarely do that, man, because I feel like, especially in the middle of the day when the sun's high and it's bluebird, it's really hard to trick those fish into biting first off. But when you're throwing like a topwater bait, you can really create that reaction bite, even if they're not really wanting to fully commit to it. And that's kind of really what I did all day long, and I didn't really see anyone else throwing topwater. They were just slowly dragging baits, back and forth, especially as that sun got high. And I was running and gunning. I don't know how many miles I covered, but I covered a lot of water that day. And I think that kind of helped me as well. I just didn't slow down, and a lot of people were slowing down.
Yeah, and that's a good analysis, because I think what you touched on is, it's kind of like what you hear a lot, top water. Oh, that top water is going to work in the morning, but as the sun gets high, get away from the top water. And, that's not always the case, and especially on a lake like Stillhouse, which is a lot of clear water. Yeah. It's very different. I don't think every lake is different. One of the toughest things about Texas, especially in summer, is the clear lakes, especially deep clear lakes, like you mentioned. I'm not a fan of it. Especially on summer, because I think, in my opinion, it's like, well, the water gets heated so quickly, and those fish go really, really deep. And the other thing is, they can see you way before you can see them. So they start dispersing, they start going deeper. It's interesting how you stay the course and stay with the top water, and I don't blame anybody for saying like, no, I would have gone out of the way top water, thinking the water clarity is there, and this we're still, even though we're in, like, we had like the first day of fall, kind of like it got cooler, but by the time this tournament went around, the temperatures midweek had already gone back to the 90s. And I think that threw a lot of people off. I mean, I wasn't there. I don't know what everybody's game plan was, but I think a lot of people thought, they're going to, I heard a lot of people saying, oh, they're going to move shallow into the creeks. They're going to start chasing bait fish, where, like you said, that wasn't the case. That wasn't the winning pattern for you. It was more like a topwater bite.
Indeed, yes, it was, and I kind of thought that personally. Like I said, I thought the water temps were going to be mid 70s or less, and fish were going to start moving up into those pockets and toes and creeks, and it just really wasn't a whole lot of that going on yet. I think we kind of just missed it, really.
Yeah, I think it's still. I think now, like, today is, what is today? Today is, I know this show is going to come out next week, but today is Wednesday, October 13th. We've gotten a lot of rain now. Over the last couple of days. I think now it's when you're going to see those bass really move up into those creeks. I don't think we're going to see 90 Well, it's Texas. You never know. But I don't think the water temperature is going to go back to the 80s by now. What if for all those lakes that the water temperature, especially Central Texas, all those lakes the water dropped below the 80s. I don't think it's going to get back to the 80s. So I think now is when the fish are going to start moving deeper into those creeks, and now I think it's where that bait fish pattern is going to really pay off.
I agree. Yeah, with all this rain, especially that'll cool off the water temps drastically. So I think so.
And windy too, a lot of wind, which is typical. Transition weather in Texas, and I haven't lived anywhere other than Texas in the United States, in the continental U.S., so I can't say how is it in other places. But I know like Texas, summer is always going to be hot. It may not always be as hot. Like this summer wasn't as hot as we've seen last summer. But, winter transition seasons like spring and fall here in Texas, it's a coin flip. You might actually get on one day summer, winter weather in the same day. So, you never know. So, other than this tournament, obviously has this been the biggest win for you right now, the Lonestar Throwdown?
Yes, it has. On this kind of stage with that many anglers and the quality of anglers that were there, yeah, definitely the biggest win. I've won some smaller local events, but nothing of that size now.
Kind of crazy to think that you haven't won a big name tournament right now with all the consistency you've always achieved. Now, we were talking about this on the pre-show, and actually the day after the tournament, I texted you, I messaged you on Instagram. You had 94 inches on Choke Canyon Lake, and you still couldn't even crack the top 10 on that tournament. How disappointed was that for you?
Very disappointing, because like I said, that I consider that my home lake, and I've got that lake figured out pretty well. And then to come in, with that many inches and not even be in the top 10 that was a shocker. It really was. That kind of hurt really because, all these guys are cracking these fish. And I felt like I was cracking them, personally, but just not like some other people were. That was a big shocker. I don't know how many times that's happened, here and there, but like to have that many inches and be in the outside of the top 10 is crazy. But that time of the year, it can happen, especially down here,
Yeah, it is. And yeah, spring over here was kind of crazy. We had the Snowmageddon, it wasn't in February, right? And that really kind of threw a wrench in kind of like your fishing plans because kind of like historic snowfall here with, I'm sure, a lot of people, the fish are not used to it. Us as kayak anglers are not used to seeing that weather here in Texas. So before that snowstorm, I think the bite, that late winter bite was on fire in some of the tournaments, TKC and Cats. Then we had that, and for 2 weeks after that, I think everybody struggled to figure it out. I know you and I were at the TKC at Lake Palestine, and that was a tough tournament as well. That's one of the tournaments you got you were in like the mid 70s, like in the first hour, and then you started calling up, but still came up short. But then after that, like a month after that, I mean, the bite in spring here in Texas this year, I mean, I think it was historic. I mean, when you look at what happened in OH Ivy, Possum Kingdom, although Possum Kingdom Bass Kayak that was Bass Nation Kayak Series Championship, that was more summer. But still, some of the tournaments, especially in Central Texas, I mean, they were blowing up with 100, 105. We already mentioned it, the Trinity River at Saturday, that was on spring. I mean, I've never seen a spring like that here in Texas before. And I was talking to Grant from Fun and Sun Tackle here, the manager of the Fun and Sun Tackle, Boat and Tackle, the manager of the tackle shop. And he was saying the same thing. It was like, man, this spring, the bite was just on fire. Once that spawning season kind of faded out, I mean, everything was just on fire.
Yeah, it really was. It was magical, man. And I don't really know. The only thing I can think of is maybe those fish just shut down for so long and they were so hungry. I mean, I don't really know how else to put it, but man, it was magical for a lot of lakes around here and a lot of tournaments.
What's been your other than the Lone Star Throwdown, which one? What's been one of your, not just this year, but throughout your kind of like your tournament career? What's been one of your favorite lakes and trails that you fished?
Well, you kind of mentioned it, Palestine. For
Yeah,
TKC, that was the first time I'd been on that lake as well, and I fell in love with that lake. It really sets up for a
yeah,
power fisherman like myself, and I really enjoyed that lake. I would love to go back to that lake when the bite was a little better because I still
yeah.
caught some good fish, especially during pre-fish. But that was a really fun lake. I think that's been my funnest tournaments besides the throwdown this year. I really enjoyed that one on Palestine.
You're probably one of the few ones that enjoy that. Was a
You're
beat
right.
down, man. I think Guillermo and Scotch did pretty well. I met Rolando Nandina at the boat ramp. He and I did horrible. I think ended up with 2 or 3. I can't remember. I know it was either 2 or 3. It wasn't more than that. So it was. I mean, it was a tough tournament, and that was like a week or 2 weeks removed from that snowstorm. So we kind of I ran into Jeff Isham at the boat ramp. He's telling the same thing. I'm pre-fishing Kickapoo Creek, I think it's what it called. It was tough, man. Where do you fish on that lake? You went mid lake, right?
I did go mid lake. It's been a while. I forget that main. It's the next creek above Kickapoo. It's a major
Yeah,
creek. I can't think of the name of it, but that's the creek I was in, and I scouted Kickapoo, but there was so many people in there when I
yeah,
scouted it. I just wanted to get away from people, so I found that other creek, that one above it. That's just I mean, it's a big creek too. That's kind of where I did my damage at, in there. There was a lot less people. Well, there was quite a few people back there actually as the day progressed. I know
yeah,
Brian Howell. He was there. He was in that creek.
yeah.
A couple other big names that did really well there. That creek was just producing.
What now? Looking back now, we mentioned the how consistent you've been throughout every single tournament, day in and day out. Who's one of your favorite kayak anglers here in Texas that you look up to, or you say, "Man, I wish I could get at that level"? If there's any that you feel that way.
There is, there's definitely a handful of men that I look up to and respect, and I kind of hate seeing their name on the board when you sign up, but it makes me, want to get that
Yeah.
much better and beat them. But here in San Antonio, Jacob
Hmm.
Muller has been, very consistent. He's won Angler of the Year titles. He's won several titles. He won the Lone Star Throwdown last year. He's one that I look up to a lot, but Guillermo, obviously, I think a lot of people would say that he's a good guy to look up to, great angler, great human being, and Matt
Yeah.
Scotch, I like what he does as well. But man, there's so many good kayak anglers here in Texas. It's really hard, and that just kind of makes you strive to be that much better. You want to be up there with those guys every tournament.
Yeah, it's kind of like a bitter sweet thing. Not, I wasn't born here in Texas. I moved about 10 years ago, and I love the bass culture here, and I love it's to me it's bass fishing capital of the world. At least bass fishing capital of the United States, that's for sure.
Yeah,
But at the same time, you got so many guys who's like, man, to stand out among this group is not easy. You really have to put it. There's no way to cut corners. There's no way to get lucky on a tournament and get the biggest bag on a tournament because there's I mean, the talent level, the talent pool is so deep that it's insane. It's kind of like a blessing and a curse at the same time.
yeah, it is, and that's kind of really why I haven't really strived to go out of state yet. I've only been here 4 years, but the quality of anglers and the trails that are ran here,
Yeah.
there's plenty of good sticks out there. There's plenty of great anglers that you can compete against. You don't got to travel out of state to go do that on a national level. Eventually, I'll do that, but right now it's I want to prove myself in Texas before I start traveling outside of it. So
Yeah, it's definitely. But the good thing is, I think for me, when I start my first year doing tournament fishing, I was like, I understood. I'm just donating money at that point. I was just like, I understood what I was and what I wasn't. I'm like, I'm just here to learn. I'm just here to, I mean, I'll try to win. I'm not saying that I'm just going to go out there and give money away. But my main goal is I'm going to try to see what works. But the main thing was like, I need to learn something from this trail. Even if I learn it by myself, or I'll talk to the guys at the boat ramp, and ask for advice, what helped, and kind of like help me piece the puzzle. Now going into my second year, then I'm hoping to win some tournaments and having the experience of fishing against guys like Mark Pendergraft, Guillermo, Matthew. It really makes you better, because when you can't get complacent here. There's no way to get complacent. You always have to be at the best of. At your best, how do you say it, at your A game to even try to compete with some of this guys. So going into a tournament with this high level talent is only going to get you better. It's going to elevate your game, knowing that that pressure is on you if you have the right mindset.
Absolutely. And even on your worst tournaments, on your worst days of fishing, as long as you're learning something, you're moving in the right direction, no matter how bad it stings or how bad it sucks. As long as you're learning something, I think that's the key to getting better. Even on those bad days and those worst days that you don't want to think about, as long as you're learning something, it's going to help you down the road for sure.
That's true. Very true. So now I know this, looking forward to December, you got new member of the family coming up, and then how do you think that's going to affect your tournament fishing schedule next year?
Well, this year I did quite a few tournament trails and I was all over the place, and it was hard. I felt like I wasn't doing myself justice when I'm just showing up to the tournaments and pre-fishing the day before, because the prior weekend there's another tournament. So I never really got to pre-fish. Luckily, it kind of just worked out and I did decent throughout the year, but next year it's definitely going to slow me down. There's no doubt about it. I need to be home. I need to be supportive, But I think what I'm going to try to do next year is just fish one trail, and then just kind of, try to compete, get in the classic, whichever trail it is, maybe try to compete for Angler of the Year, but really just do one trail, not try to overdo it. That way I can kind of be home more as well and actually pre-fish for the lakes that are coming up, instead of trying to hit every stinking trail and every tournament there is, because there are so many of them out there.
Yeah, there's so many. I mean, we got the Lonestar Throwdown. It's a combination of all of them. You got southeast, east, northeast. So many trails.
South,
so many.
Yeah,
so many clubs out there. So many, and then you got TKC, which is kind of everywhere in Texas. So, and I think there's even West Coast. Well, not West Coast. West region tournament.
Yeah, there is. They have a trail, West Texas Trail. There's
so
quite
definitely
you can really pick your poison.
Yeah, you can go like everywhere.
Yeah.
What's been some of you, let me put you on the spot, what's been some of the favorite tournament trails that you like? You fished the Cats. Have you fished regularly the Southeast Texas Kayak?
I hit some of their tournaments when they kind of come over this way. But I mainly concentrate on Cats, and this year TKC was a big one for me. This is their first year doing it, but I enjoy Cats. Just the group of anglers. It's a long tournament trail that's been around for a very long time, and then this new trail TKC, the higher payouts, higher entry fees, kind of put the more seasoned veteran anglers out there. I feel like, so I really enjoyed TKC this year. I didn't get to do them all of them, but I think I did 3 out of the 5, and all 3 of those I did really well in. So I enjoyed that trail a lot.
Yeah, big competition on those, and like you said, bigger money, bigger payouts. The championship is coming up, and it's going to be 2 days in Welch. That's going to be exciting. I know I'm not going to be able to take a part of it. You were telling me, same thing. You got a lot on your plate right now. Unfortunately, you're not going to be there, but we're hoping to see what Chris Morales brings, and Andrew, and God, I forgot the name of that. Joseph Sanderson. Joseph Anderson. Yeah. So congratulations to the job that they're done. I mean, it's being a tournament director. I've mentioned it before. It's you're doing your job when your name doesn't get mentioned. So that means everything's going smooth. So Congratulations to what all of them are doing. Duke Tran, I think Duke Trent runs or actually organizes the Lonestar Throwdown, even though it's multi-region. Duke Trent's the one who pretty much founded it, correct?
Right. Yep. Yep. He's the
Yeah,
one that runs it.
and he's
And I
done
think all
the
the
North. Yeah,
I think all the regional captains of all the teams, I think they kind of have a helping hand as well. But yeah, Duke does
yeah,
definitely the majority of it.
yeah, and he runs the North Texas Kayak Championship as well. So Duke, Chris Morales, Joseph Anderson, Andrew Jacobson. I forgot the gentleman that runs Cats. What's his name?
It
The
it
tournament director.
it's jumped around a lot. In the last 4 years. There's been a new director every year. This
Yeah,
this year it was Caden Pasowitz.
Caden Passwords.
Yeah.
Yeah.
hmm
So, I mean, congratulations to all four of them. Now that the season is kind of winding down, I think they did a great job. There were some challenges, of course. There's always, people trying to get a little cocky with the rules and all that, and that unfortunately happened. But I think each one of them, each tournament director handled it the best way, and when there were mistakes done, I think they were handled appropriately. So Chris Morales again, Duke Trand, Caden, everybody that's doing tournament director this year, congratulations to them, and to all the Texas kayak anglers, man, support your tournament directors. Make sure you thank them for what they're doing. It's a very sacrificing job, and they don't get enough of the credit, but they sure get the lion's share of the blame when things don't go right. So make sure we all support them and do what we can, to keep them. We want to keep them engaged in what they're doing and happy. So show them your gratitude in any way, form, if you can. Even if it's just being a pat on the back and congratulating them for the great job.
Absolutely.
JR, so I know you're family man. I already kept you for like 40 minutes. I don't want to keep you too long. I wanted to go over, you mentioned you love the top water and the chatterbait. Kind of give us a quick rundown. What's your top water setup and your chatterbait setup?
So I'm on Team Kistler. I love their rods, man. And for the chatterbait, I use a 7.3 medium heavy fast action rod. It's actually the Magnesium 2 series. I think that's a $250 blank, so it's a really good rod. But that's kind of been my bread and butter as far as a chatterbait setup. That 7.3 allows me to still, throw it a good ways and then still have a lot of leverage on them fish. Because like I said, I fish that around a lot of grass. And having that longer rod and that backbone to kind of get them out of that has been crucial this year. As far as top water setups, I have two different ones. I have a frog rod. It's a 7-foot heavy moderate action. The reason I like that moderate action because it allows me to one skip the bait, like up under docks, trees,
Yeah.
just whatever kind of cover, and then just be more accurate with it. And then it also allows me to walk the frog really easy because that tip kind of absorbs it. And then, it allows the fish to really get it before I really crack them. So that moderate action really helps on that frog. And as far as like a Whopper Plopper Rod, I use a 611 feel and reel Kistler. It's a KLX feel and reel. It's a composite rod. It's a glass and graphite blend. So you still get the sensitivity. If you were using something else, maybe like a jerk bait or, something that you don't, or a crankbait, fill in the bottom. But that glass tip really allows those fish to, again, eat it without kind of ripping those treble hooks out of the bait. But yeah, those are my two main top water setups: a frog and a Whopper Plopper. And I will throw that buzz bait on that same frog rod, 7-foot heavy moderate action. And I use 65-pound braid for those as well.
Good stuff, man. And having a rod that's heavy but moderate is not easy. I don't think not every rod company out there can get that, because usually heavy rods are if we're going to be fast or extra fast. But to find that one that's moderate, I know Douglas Rod has something like that as well, where they have a heavy rod with a moderate to fast action. It really does make a difference when you're talking about walking baits. It really does make a difference that moderate action versus the fast action.
Yeah, it's a huge difference because I used to use a fast action with a frog and a buzz bait, and I felt like it just kind of hindered the bait a little bit, and then kind of hindered casting into certain areas and trying to lay it up under there without scaring fish. That moderate tip really allows you to do that really efficiently. And, the reason why I went with a 7-foot is because I'm not really making long casts with it, and
Yeah.
it's just easier to manage in the kayak, a 7-foot. I know a lot of guys like a 7.5-foot heavy or even longer than that. It's just, I'm not making super bomb casts and I'm not really needing that long of a rod. It's just easier to manage in a kayak, that 7-foot. I'm really, honestly, I'm like on the cover when I'm throwing a frog. I'm not making long casts. I'm making little specific target casts.
Yeah, and especially when you got like a lot of vegetation, longer casts just get you into trouble.
Exactly. You're right, 100%.
It's kind of like I've had it where you kind of forgot what I'm throwing. I bomb it out there, and I'm like, crap! I'm hoping, please don't get a bite right at the end of that cast, because now it's like if there were bass in between now where I am and that bass, then. For God's sakes, I hope that bass is like a 20+ inch, because I just blew up that spot completely.
Right. Yeah. No, I've been there and I've done that and I've learned, man. But like the further you throw back into the grass, it's so hard to get them out, especially if they get buried. And say you've got your pedal drive in, and now you got to take it out and paddle up to them while holding tension. It's just not a good deal. It's not efficient. So, like I said, I don't throw bomb casts anymore. I'm kind of just more target specific, and it's worked out. It's worked out really well.
Yeah, I think bombing it out there's basic crankbait's the only thing that I would say, especially deep diving crankbait, when you need to put that distance between you and the bait so that bait could stay at its sweet spot the longest. That's pretty much the only time that I would say, like, yeah, you need to bomb it out.
Right. Yeah. Or like a jig, something that you're going to be dragging on the bottom. You want to, but yeah, something like that for sure.
Carolina rigs as well. Mm-hmm. Okay, so JR, I know you mentioned it already, Kistler, but I also wanted to give you a chance to shout out sponsors and I'm sure maybe friends and family members that you like to thank. So I want to give you a few minutes for that. So if you want to go ahead and thank anybody you want to thank that makes your fishing life easier.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, Kistler rods. Without those rods and the sensitivity and the high quality blanks that they produce, I mean, they've helped me put some big fish in the boat, and not really failed me to this point. So huge shout out to them, and they're made locally here in Texas. So that's pretty cool. ACK, the place I work for, they help me out, give me lots of incentives, good discounts, that kind of stuff for, because our gear is expensive, in the kayaking world, it's very expensive. And then you got to travel and all these fees and tournament fees and stuff. So big shout out to them. And then, my wife, big support group right there. She takes care of the daughter when I'm gone and holds the fort down. Without her, I definitely wouldn't be doing this. So, and then, I got a lot of good buddies here in San Antonio that just kind of push me to do better. A huge shout out to Carlos Estrada, Rolando Nadine, Jake Muller, Adam Eslack, Tyler Howell, Andrew Dixon, Eugene Mora. All these guys are really, big sticks here locally, and they kind of push me to be at that next level. But yeah, those are the kind of guys I want to shout out.
Yeah, some big names out there for those in the Texas regions. We all recognize those names. So, it's great to have that support group. Like I said, having, support group of that many talented anglers, surrounding you is only going to make you better. So shout out to them for what they've done as well, and also on and off the water.
Absolutely.
So JR, I mean, congratulations, first of all, on the Lonestar. I mean, when I saw it, I messaged you and I told you more than anybody, I think here in Texas have earned it, just because you've always been so consistent. You've always been a gentleman in and on and off the water. Somebody that I consider a good ambassador to the sport. And so we're very happy for you, for what you got. More importantly, congratulations on JB coming up. Or JB or JD? No,
JB. Yeah, JB. B as in boy. Yeah.
B as in boy. JD's your dad. So congratulations on JB. Excited to see him, on your kayak, sitting on your lap and casting out there. Yeah. Next generation kayak anglers.
Yep, for sure. But I appreciate that, man. I appreciate all the kind words and having me on here. This opportunity has been great. And like I said, this win is just kind of, it's still surreal. It still hasn't quite hit me yet, because when you look at like the previous champions, the title holders of the Lonestar Throwdown, you got Matt Scotch, Jody Morris, there's just some big names up there, man. And to be, Jake Muller last year, just to kind of be in that conversation now is really just mind blowing. I can't really fathom it right now. So.
You've earned it, my man. You've earned it.
Thank you.
So thank you again, JR. My pleasure,
Absolutely.
man. Thank you for coming to the show. For those out there listening, if you made it this far, I appreciate it. Go check out Douglas Rod. Go to douglasoutdoors.com. Check out their full lineup. Big thanks to JR for coming on to the show. If you're going to be on the water, please, especially cold weather's coming up. Thunderstorms, it's fall season. Anything could happen in a snap of a finger weather-wise. Wear your PFDs. Keep an eye out for the weather. Don't get caught in a bad place at a bad time. So take care, everyone. Have a great day, and peace.
Thank you, Armando. See ya.
Thank you, Joe. Take care, man. Thanks again, buddy. I really, really appreciate it. It's an honor having you on the podcast.
Absolutely. I've had a blast.
All right.
See you later.
And you're welcome. Yeah, take care. You're welcome to come up anytime, man.
Awesome. Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.